Hello everyone. Today we are going to be exploring how to use Maya to create some animations and then export them over to Unity, and we'll then cut them up inside of Unity, the animations, and then attach them to the animation controller that can then be attached to the model so that we can run our characters around inside of Unity. So to begin with, we're going to start out with a model that's inside of Maya already inside the content browser. So we'll go to Windows, General Editors, Content Browser, and we'll use the human body as our subject. Of course, if you have your own model, you can use your own model. This will just help accelerate the process for us to get some animations going. Okay, now that I have my model, and if you create your own custom model, you can go ahead and use that and follow along. We're going to use the quick rig in the HIK system to build a rig for this model in one easy step. So the HIK system is located up here in the top right. It looks like this little guy here. Go ahead and click on this. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and click this to none. Okay. With the model selected, I'm going to go to Quick Rig Tool. Okay, and it says Auto Rig. If I want to be specific on where all the joints are specifically, so like making sure that the elbow and knees are in exactly the right location, I can go to step by step. But for the sake of speed and going through this lesson, I'm just going to use the auto rig function. Okay, it's going to create guides and a joint system and a control rig. Okay, there it is. Let's go ahead and close this. Let's test it out for a second. Looks about right. Test out the hands. That's good. Of course, you'll find there's some weighting issues with the base mesh because I haven't done any weighting on it. It just has a quick bind skin that the auto rig feature applies to it, which we can use and it'll be just fine for the lesson. So let's go ahead and look at our three kinds of animations we want to achieve before sending this over to Unity. So we want to use a idle cycle, we want to have a walk cycle and a run cycle. So let's first do the idle cycle since that one's nice and easy. We're going to, on frame 1, put him in a pose where he looks like he's kind of just chilling casually, not in this T pose. Have his knees bent a little bit. Move his hands back into where they're by his side. Maybe down a little bit more. And hands rotated down. Okay. Maybe not quite that much. There we go. And we'll have his head slightly tilted down. There we go. Okay, so this will be good. Let's go ahead and select the center hips control, and we'll, on frame 1, hit S. Same thing with the hands, hit S. Feet will hit S. Same thing with the head. Okay, so there's now keyframes on all of them, and the HIK system usually adds keyframes at the chain, so that extra sets of keys I added may have actually been overkill, but it doesn't matter. I'll just overwrite that single frame. Okay, so now I'm going to go forward, let's say to frame 20, and I'll have him kind of just sway off to the side. Maybe even turn a little bit. Have the hands drift off to the side. Not a whole lot. When it's in idle, you don't want them moving a whole bunch, especially fast. Okay, and I'll just have his head turn that way. And hand for 40, let's go ahead and have it go the other way. Now, you may have noticed I didn't add any keyframes as far as I said, but you can see there's now keyframes on frame 20. I have an auto keyframe feature turned on, which makes it to where after I've added a keyframe, anytime I add changes along the timeline, it'll automatically add keyframes to the timeline as well. So this is something you might want to have on. If you're not comfortable with it, to go ahead and just deactivate this, and you have to add them in manually. But this makes it to where our whole process is a little bit faster. Okay, so on frame 40 now. I'm just going to have it rotate the other way. Okay. Have him look the other way. Maybe I'll have his hand. Not quite that much. I'm getting some weird bending. Okay. Let's see if that's okay. That's good. Let's have him go back to the start then at the end. So at the end, we'll have him transition to his original pose at frame 50. So I'm just going to take frame 1, and then I'm going to middle mouse button on frame 50. That makes it to where I can copy all the keyframes from frame 1 to frame 50 without actually having to carry anything over, no copy and pasting. It's just, I mean, otherwise what would happen is like he would be right here to frame 50, and then I have to manually put everything back. So instead, I could just go to frame 1, middle mouse button on frame 50. You can see how nothing's changed now. And then I can just hit S, and that adds the keyframe in there. Okay, so pretty simple. Actually, let's go back. Make sure that I didn't mess anything up here. Oh, I see what happened. I need to keyframe all the controls. That's what happened. Let's say just the hand was moving. There we go. Okay, so from frame 1 to frame 50 will be his idle cycle. Now I'm only going to have time to do the walk cycle because, you know, we're already 7 minutes in and I want to make this all one video. Walk and run could be a little bit longer. So rather than doing a bunch of different animations, I'm going to actually include this all in one timeline. So I'm going to now, on frame 60, I'm going to put him into a walk pose. So let's go ahead and just move this back like so. Move his foot out like so. Put it up like that. Okay. And you see how he started to already kind of drift here. The reason why is because on frame 1 is where I had that starting keyframe, but nothing until frame 50. So I'm going to go ahead and add from frame 1 to frame 50 a keyframe. That way, on the idle, it doesn't actually start moving until after the idle's done. Now we're going to frame 60. So same thing with this control here. There's not a lot going on here. I don't want it to start moving until after frame 50. So I'm just going to copy and paste frame 40 at frame 50. That way it doesn't start going to the walk pose until after the idle's done. There we go. Let's move this one back just a little bit more. There we go. And we're going to have to push this down a little bit. And with walk cycles, if one foot is forward, the opposite hand is the one that's swinging forward. And it's not going to be really high. It's going to be kind of low because they're in a walk, not a run. So very casual. Okay. So that's the start pose. Now every 10 frames I'm going to have a transition. So we're going to say from frame 10 to 20, or from 60 to 70. Actually, let's do 60 to 80. No, let's do 70. Sorry, indecisive. Okay, so 70 will be the transition. So we'll make it to where complete walk is 20 frames. Okay, so from 60 to 70, I'm going to take this one and put it in the same position as this one, roughly. I'm going to take this one and I'm going to move it back to where the other one was. So and I don't know if you guys caught that, but that was a middle mouse button drag that I was doing there. So I middle mouse button clicked right here, so that way I can move this one back to match this other one, this other foot, without actually making the timeline jump forward. So now when I click here, you'll see that this foot will jump back to the beginning where it was at in frame 70. So there we go. Okay, so now we need to do some modifications. So frame 60, as the front foot's coming back on frame 65, it's flat, right? It would probably be flat by even right here. So let's go ahead and just add that in there. And also, this other foot here would be off the ground just a little bit as it's coming forward. Not a whole bunch, but just a little bit. Some people drag their feet, but this person's not going to. Okay. Next is to have the rise and fall. And to do that, you need the hips to be able to go up and down as they walk. So on 65 is going to be the height of the walk because this foot is lifting it all up, right? So and then as it comes back down, I'll just copy and paste 60 to 70. There we go. Okay. So that's half of it. Also, as it's going, this hand here would then, once it gets to 70, would then be forward because its leg is back, and then this one would be back because its leg is forward. Okay. Not bad. Obviously, we could do more stuff with the head and sway, but we're going to try to keep this as simple as possible since we have a pipeline. We're trying to achieve all of it in one lesson. So there we go. We got 60 to 70. Now we just need to have it return, right? So that way we have a full loop. Okay. So then what we need to do is we basically need this one from frame 60 needs to be copy and paste to frame 80, right? Oops. Frame 60, we're going to copy and paste it to frame 80, so middle mouse button click right here. And we're going to do the same thing for this one. Okay, so that makes it to where now goes forward. Okay, so there we go. But once he's over here, frame 70, now we have to also look at the rise and fall of the body so we can make some adjustments for the rest of it. So we got 60 to 70. So he starts out low, goes high, goes low, and then once he gets up to 75, he has to go high again, right? Okay. And then he's going to go back down low. So we'll just copy and paste that keyframe right here. There we go. Okay. So now we have a walk cycle. Still got to finish up with the hands though. Let's see here. Actually, did we get it all? No, we didn't. Okay. 60 to 70. Okay, so we got copy and paste 60 to 80. Same thing here. There we go. So that is a complete walk cycle. Okay. Obviously, you can add more onto this, but that's far enough for now. Now, we don't have any forward locomotion on this. I did that on purpose, so that means that you're going to have to use the programmers to drive this thing actually moving forward, and then the animation controller will just make him look like he's moving along because of the animation, when in fact it'll be programmatically driven. Okay, so that's going to do it for the animation portion. Obviously, we can go ahead and delve way deep into this, but since, like I said, we're trying to keep this hitting several bases on this one video, we're going to tighten it up. The run cycle is much like the walk cycle, except for you're in full stride. You can refer to quite a few animation videos online other than this video, and they'll show you how to do a walk cycle, and it's very similar to a walk cycle, or a run cycle, and it's very similar to a walk cycle. Okay, so moving forward, we are now ready to export. So before we do that, though, we need to take the controllers and bake it down to a skeleton, and then we're going to export the skeleton and model, because the controls won't go into Unity. Unity won't know what to do with the controls from Maya, but that does know what to do with the rig, or the skeleton. So we're going to go to this little box over here, and you'll see an option here that says bake, and we're going to do bake to skeleton. Okay, so it goes through and does all that for us. Excellent. So now I can go ahead and select the model, and let's go ahead and open up this part here. It says quick grid character reference. We want all the joints on the inside here, and don't be fooled by these ones. These are just the guides. We want all of these, so we're going to go to select hierarchy. That way we get all the joints, not just one. And then we also want to shift select the mesh. So now we have, I don't want this locator, I just want the joints and the body. Okay, so I'm gonna go to File, I'm gonna go to Export Selection and open up the submenu for that. I'm sorry, not the submenu. Export Selection, and then we're going to make sure underneath animation that animation's checked. And we want to, yep, that's all good. Start end frame. If you have more than 200 frames, make sure that's checked. If you have higher than this, bake animations, you want that checked. That's good. All right, so we are ready to go. Let's go ahead and find where we want this to go. And let's go to Maya. And I have one here called Class Lessons. Okay, so we're going to call this one character test. Okay, and you want this to be an FBX export. Okay, if this wasn't activated, you don't see FBX export, just go to your plugin manager. You'll find that you'll just need to activate your FBX or exporter. And there we go. So we're going to go ahead and hit export selection, and it's good to go. Let's go ahead and open up the file or the folder outside of the project here. So I already have it open over here. So here's my class lessons. Here it is, character test. That's the FBX file that we just finished. Okay. Now we need to go and put it inside of Unity. So we're going to go inside Unity here. I already have it open too. Now this is part of another project I'm working on, so disregard a lot of this stuff. It's just some stuff that I've been doing on the side. So where you're going to put it inside of Unity is underneath the models. So you have assets, models. Inside of here I created one called lesson, and I'm going to drag and drop this into the lesson. Now over here is sometimes works. Sometimes it tells you can't just drop it in here. If it does, just drop it in over here and I'll add it in there for you. But this is seriously how easy it is. Just drag and drop it in there and it will bring it all in. Okay, there it is. Okay, next steps. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on this guy and see what we got. Okay, there it is. Model, rig, animation. You don't have to mess with either of these two here. This is pretty much all we need to look at the moment. Okay, let's just press play and see what came over. Make sure all of our animations are there. Okay, so there's my idle and my walk. Perfect. All right. Now we're going to trim this down to where the idle is, which its idle ends right around here. Okay. And we're going to call this one test lesson idle. And naming conventions are really important here because there is some stuff that comes inside your asset bundle that already has animations, and they may or may not work for your model. So don't just call them take one and just start stacking it in that way. All right, so here's how I dictated what my start and end is. If I want to, I can actually go in here and just put in like 50 and say that that's good. We don't need loop pose or any of this stuff. We're going to leave these unchecked. We're just going to hit apply. When we're done, actually, we're going to hit apply, but we're not quite done yet. I do have hit the plus sign, that'll add the clip in. I did have another animation I want to cut out of this, right? So next one's gonna be the walk cycle. So this is going to be to right. There. So frame 80, and I think that was 60 that we had it, right? There we go. That's good. All right, and I'm gonna call this test lesson walk. Okay. And I'll add that as well. Wait, what? I didn't add in there. It did, it just didn't keep the name for some reason. Okay, well, I'll just rename it. And I'll rename this one 0. Because for some reason it has to keep the base. Okay, there we go. Now I can go ahead and hit apply. There it goes. It's been applied to here, and it's cut out all the animations I just made off of this timeline and it applied it to the projects. Now I can go ahead and access them. Okay, so now that we're done with this, we now also want to have an animation controller, and we want to put a model inside the scene. So first, let's do the model inside the scene, since that's super easy to do. Just going to drag and drop it to my hierarchy. Okay, I'm not going to show you guys the model in the scene because it's not going to actually run until you have a script that's controlling it. Plus, like I said, I'm working in a test scene that I'm working on privately. Okay, so here we go with this. Now I can create an animation controller. You'll see that the model inside my scene also has this animator attached to it. And right now it's got the avatar, but no controller actually controlling it. So right mouse button on here, I'm going to go ahead and hit create. And we're going to do an animation controller. Here we go. And I'll just call this one test controller. Okay. Inside this model that's inside of our scene, I'm going to make sure that this controller is attached to this one, so that way if I do have some programming, I can then go ahead and start running this character around right away. I don't have that, but just in case I did, which you guys most likely will, here we go. So just take this new controller and drag and drop it where it says controller. There we go. All right. Now we're done with the controller initiation, the model in the scene. Now all we gotta do is actually create the state machine that will control the character based on the animation controller. So we'll hold down right mouse button and it will go to create state, empty. There's our first state. Okay. So the new state that we're going to create is going to be our idle state. Let's call this new state idle. Okay. Where it says motion, what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down until we find it. There it is. Test lesson idle. And I'll just double click on that. And it's automatically connected in there. There's our idle pose. Okay. Next, we want to create another state, which will be our walk state. So I'll just hold down right mouse button here again, go to create state, empty. There we go. And I'm going to call this one walk. Okay. Now where it says motion, I'll go ahead and click on this little side bead and then scroll down to where it says test lesson walk and double click on that. And there it is. Okay, so now is all I need to do is I just need to connect my states. So this is where, with this, it's going to be very simple because we only have one other state. But when you have more than one state, you have to decide whether one can go to the other and how it'll look like when it blends. So for instance, with this one, I'll hold down right mouse button on the state and do make transition. And then you get this thing coming off of your mouse and it's asking where you can connect to. And it kind of snaps to them based on whatever it's getting close to. So we'll get close to the walk and then I'll click on it and that makes the connection. Okay, and if you click on this little arrow here, you'll see that here's the idle state and here's the walk state. And you can actually see it going from one to the next. So there you go. That's what it'll look like when it blends from the next one. Now you can adjust the blends. This guy up here will let you decide how much it blends from one to the next. So okay, it looks like that, and then into there. If you want to be a little more subtle, you can always just make the blend longer. Okay, let's try that. Okay, doesn't really necessarily need it for this animation, but it does give you some power to tinker a bit. Okay. All right, so now that we have one going from idle to walk, we also need a case to where we can have it go back. So we're going to right mouse button, click on it, and do make transition, going from the walk state back to the idle state. Click on that, and it will complete it. So now we have it going the opposite way. So let's go ahead and click on that and see how that transition looks. Okay. Goes from walk and then back to idle. And you might, like I said, just the other way, you might want to make it to where it blends a bit. Easy peasy, right? Okay, so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Now we have an actual animation controller that we can pass to the programmer, and then they can begin to use it to both call the animations and attach forward locomotion to your model and have it walk around the environment. So hopefully this is a helpful tutorial for you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson.